So far away, Lucas, and lovely audience at home. Are you ready for another episode of Wiki Weekends, the series where we scour the lengths and breadths of the internet to find something fun and interesting to talk about?
What are we talking about?
Well, today, Lucas, we're talking about wanting to believe. The X-Files! And the reason I wanted to talk about the X-Files today, Lucas, is one, I love the X-Files, and two, it's spooky month, so let's talk about something that's basically just entirely revolves around the supernatural.
That, of course, don't exist, right?
Well, of course not, no, but what do you know about the X-Files?
Obviously, I know that it's, one of, modern TV's mainstays for a long time, but the main thing that I know and remember about it is that one of the two... I can't remember the names. Is it Scully and Mulder? Is it or something?
Mulder and Scully, yeah.
Just that you keep pointing out that one of them never believes in the supernatural, even though it happens every episode.
Just keep watching. It's unbelievable.
That's unreal. I've never seen anything like it.
They've been going at it like that for almost half an hour.
Well, it can't be aircraft.
Which is why I want to talk about it, because it's so fun. But before we get into that, let's just give everyone just a brief overview of the show so that they're all on the same page. So as always, the link to the wiki we're referring to can be found below. But The X-Files is an American science fiction drama television series created by Chris Carter. So it originally aired from 1993 to May 2002. 10 seasons of the show with 208 episodes, because there was a short 10th season with just 6 bonus episodes on it. There's also been a revival, which was an 11th season of 10 episodes, bringing the total to 218 episodes of the show. 2 feature films, The X-Files and the standalone film The X-Files I Want to Believe, as well as some spin-offs.
Yeah, because wasn't it The X-Files returns, The X-Files is back, and then they did one season and left it again.
Yeah, it's because, while the show was being made, David Duchovny and, to some extent, Gillian Anderson got tired of being on the show. And I'm in my yearly rewatch, and I'm up to the part where David Duchovny had basically tried to weasel out of his contract. So he's only in, 4 of the episodes. But the character is in more episodes than that. And the way they get away with it is they say that he's on the run. So every now and again, they have a guy in the distance who kind of looks like David Duchovny, and they go, Fox, is that you? And just the guy runs off. And that's it. And he's like, what a good way of explaining that you don't have one of your main actors.
No. He needs help.
It's too late.
He needs help.
Oh, dear.
It's incredible.
So silly.
The series revolves around Federal Bureau of Investigation's Special Agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully. These two investigate the eponymous X-Files, marginalized, unsolved cases involving paranormal phenomenon. Mulder is a skilled criminal profiler and ardent supernaturalist and conspiracy theorist who believes in the existence of the paranormal, which I'd say borders on the extreme because... So a thing I've talked about a lot in the past, and I'll talk about again now, is the idea of shows that are ruined by the existence of things like Netflix and Prime and the ability to binge a season in a day. Because the X-Files, because the X-Files and indeed many other shows were created in a time where you could watch one episode and then you had to wait a week to watch another one. Maybe there'd be a double bill when it was in syndication, but you got to watch one episode, you had a week, you talk about it in the water cooler, you do other stuff, you'd watch other shows, 1 week later, you watch another episode. By that point, you'd kind of forgotten the minor things that had gone. You might remember the broad strokes of if there was an overarching story, or you might remember the monster that was involved, but you largely forget the conversations. If you're binging that show and you can watch 5-6 episodes in a row, a lot of things start to become evident, such as just the fact that Scully continues to insist the paranormal does not exist becomes more and more farcical. When you have 5 episodes on the bounce where she encountered, in no particular order, aliens, werewolves, ghosts, a man made of jelly, and some fucking circus people who could teleport.
But what is it?
It's a close-up of the creature. Now, mind you, I didn't say monster. And it wasn't a Sasquatch, but it was definitely an animal. Man-sized and hairless.
Maybe it was a mangy Sasquatch.
And every single time, she's like, well, I don't know what I believe. I don't know what I saw. And it's like, well, we know what you saw, because in the previous episode, it was a fucking alien. But what makes it funny is that David Duchovny, like Fox Mulder, his belief in the paranormal, because by the 8th season, when you've encountered like 50 vampires by this point, of course you're always going to believe it. But the fact that no matter how reasonable an explanation there is, because if you just watch an episode in isolation, and in their universe it's always going to be an alien, but in isolation, when it's like, okay, someone went missing, and like Fox just goes, well, it's a vampire, and you go, okay, I get it, you believe in vampires, but not every disappearance is because of a vampire. And no matter how reasonable an explanation Scully tries to give, of like, maybe it's not a vampire, hey, like Scully's like, Fox is always just, no, it definitely is, and then it's a vampire.
Yeah, UFOs cause the Gulf War syndrome. That's a good one.
That's why we like you, Mulder. Your ideas are weirder than ours.
I was going to say, but isn't it 99% of the time actually something supernatural? So it's in that universe, it's probably good that he's just like always thinking it's a vampire.
I'd say it's about 50-50. Like 50% of the time it is actually the supernatural thing. And then the other half, like there's a reasonable explanation, or it's like, there's something that can explain it away. But it's just the fact that no matter how reasonable an explanation there is for what's going on, Fox always, because obviously that's the draw of the show. That's like the setup, and that's one of the things that you notice of when you watch 5 episodes in a row. You have to have the conversation where they sit down and Scully gives a reasonable explanation that Fox just ignores in favor of it was a vampire. But when you watch 5 episodes on the bout, he comes across like such a prick.
Like, there's just like, is it Mulder? Did you say
Mulder?
That
Yes.
always believes in them. So we've got Mulder's razor. Of just like the explanation that is the most outlandish is always the one that's true.
That ultimately brought down this plane, the cause which has eluded you.
And what was this object?
Physical proof of the existence of extraterrestrial life and intelligence.
So early on in the series, both agents become pawns in a larger conflict and come to trust each other and only a select few other people. The agents discover an agenda of the government to keep secret the existence of extraterrestrial life. Mulder and Scully's shared interest leads to them to develop a close platonic bond, which by the series' end develops into a romantic relationship, which sucks ass. Never make the will they won't they characters actually get it on, because at that point, then one of the key draws of that relationship is gone. It's something you only do when you're clambering for ratings, or you want to introduce a new dynamic to the show, because you're not confident that the dynamic as already established is strong enough to carry it. And that's what happens in the X-Files. They sleep together in one episode, and it's like, that's where it dies. That's why I stopped watching.
And like, or you get the opposite thing of like, doing like the Friends of like the will they won't they with Ross and Rachel, that then they make them get together too early, and then they have to break them up, and then get them together, and then break them up again, and then
because they realise that them not being together is far more interesting than when they are. Roughly 1/3 of the series' episodes follow a complex, mythopia-driven story arc about a planned alien invasion, which again suck. However, the other 2/3 are Monster of the Week episodes that focus on a one-off villain, mutant, or monster, and that's where the fun is. Because that's where it gets hilarious. Like when you've watched 100 episodes and they've encountered 80 different paranormal phenomenon, and Scully's like, I don't know what I saw. So I fucking do, and it was a vampire, or a Wendigo, or a ghost, or an electricity man, or a giant bug.
Like, I didn't realise that there is like a big overarching plot. So like, there's a planned alien invasion.
Yes. So, and it's kind of interesting because originally the show was just going to be every episode like, we're just going to have them like go investigate an X-file and and it's some sort of weird paranormal creature. Maybe it's not, maybe it is, but either way, like every episode is random monster. And this is where the idea of the Monster of the Week format came from. This show popularised it. And then I think the story is that Gillian Anderson got pregnant and they needed to write her off the show. And to write her off, and they said, well, if we're only doing just one-off episodes, it's going to be really difficult to explain why she's just gone for 4 or 5 of them. We need to at the very least have like an overarching plot thread between those episodes so that her disappearance remains like consistent. So they wrote in like the alien invasion subplot for the second season when she went off pregnant, and that just so happened to be quite popular. So they they basically made that the overarching like series thing. Like basically the entire series is like, it's the thing that hangs it on. But like, what you're really watching for is the Monster of the Week stuff. And I always skip past every episode about the overarching conspiracy.
Also, I would argue that Monster of the Week maybe came from Scooby-Doo.
Perhaps. It's one of those things he popularised the term.
Yeah.
And, speaking of which, the X-Files was inspired directly and indirectly by shows and series which featured elements of suspense and speculative fiction, such as The Twilight Zone, Night Gallery, Tales from the Dark Side, Twin Peaks, and especially Kolchak the Night Stalker. And when creating the main character, series creator Carter sought to reverse the gender stereotypes by making Mulder a believer and Scully a skeptic, because that's normally what it'd be, isn't it? It'd be the man is the one who's like down to earth and grounded, and has to explain to the woman why she's
ridiculous. Wrong. Yeah,
which is sexist and kind of lame. And they thought, let's turn it on its head by making the man the crazy paranoid one.
And animals don't shoot blood out of their eyeballs.
Oh no? Well, tell that to the horned lizard, which shoots blood out its eyeball, Scully. Yes, it's a defense mechanism. Scientific fact.
Mulder, the internet is not good for you.
But it becomes a bit tropey again, because in this universe,
he's always right.
The insane one is normally right.
And I said, he's not always right, but the fact that he's right more than he's wrong, and the thing that he's right about is fucking aliens, means that he's got a pretty good track record. But I do like that idea, a deliberate inversion of the thing. It's like the woman is the grounded, sensible one with the medical degree who knows what the fuck she's talking about, and the crazy conspiratorial one is the man.
Yeah, but then again, they kind of betray the reversal of it by having the crazy one be correct, a lot of the time, because supernatural things actually do exist. He's not just crazy.
Yeah, but at the same time, he is a little bit crazy because no one else ever believes him. And even Scully's like, look, okay, calm down a bit. Like I said, he'll randomly there's an episode with an invisible man who's really an invisible man, but he runs through a convention center waving his gun around saying, FBI, FBI, firing a gun.
Je ne le vois plus.
And it is weird because you mentioned Twin Peaks.
Yes.
And this and Twin Peaks kind of, to me, as an outsider of those shows, kind of seemed almost kind of mirrors of one another, of two detectives / FBI agents going around investigating paranormal activities and stuff. And it's weird to me that I don't really hear X-Files used as anything that's culturally relevant or talked about much anymore, whereas people constantly talk about Twin Peaks still.
I guess it's because I feel like X-Files kind of got overshadowed a little bit by Supernatural, which clearly is inspired by the format. So I think that's the one that's more culturally relevant today. But regardless, the X-Files was a hit for the Fox network and received largely positive reviews, although its long-term story arc was criticised near the conclusion, which is why, as a fan, and if there's anyone out there who wants to watch this show, anytime there's an episode about aliens, just skip it. It doesn't matter. You're not there to learn about aliens. You're there to watch David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson just bounce off one another, deliver quips, and shoot like werewolves.
Scully!
Initially considered a cult series, it turned into a bona fide pop culture touchstone that tapped into the public mistrust of governments and large institutions that embrace conspiracy theories and spirituality. Both the series itself and lead actors Duchovny and Anderson received multiple awards and nominations, and by the conclusion of the show was the longest-running science fiction series in United States television history. And it's just hell, god damn, yeah.
And, it's one of those of it doesn't seem quite as impressive when you remember that fucking NCIS is 8,000 series in at this point.
I'd argue though NCIS doesn't have werewolves, so by default.
The thing is, to me, X-Files seems like the interesting version of those kind of shows.
Well, here's an idea. I know which one of those shows of that ilk, those long-running shows that never seem to die, do you think would be improved by the introduction of just there's werewolves now? There's werewolves, there's ghosts, there's poltergeists, there's Wendigos, aliens.
I mean, I don't really know, because all of them are essentially the same show set in different locations.
Do you know what I think it'd be? Criminal Minds.
Fair
I
enough,
want Criminal Minds where the serial killer is an alien.
It just is Dracula.
This week is Dracula. But then every now and again, it's not Dracula. And that's how it gets.
Yeah.
But premise. General. The X-Files follows the careers and personal lives of FBI Special Agents Fox Mulder and Dana Scully. Special Agent Mulder is a talented profiler, conspiracy theorist, and ardent supernaturalist. He is also adamant about the existence of intelligent extraterrestrial life and its presence here on Earth. This set of belief earns him the nickname Spooky Mulder, which, like, clearly they put about 1 minute of thought into, and an assignment to a little-known department that deals with unsolved cases, the X-Files, which to me seems like the worst idea possible. Of the guy who's like a weirdo supernaturalist who believes every time you mention there's a whiff of alien. If there's a whiff that a werewolf's involved, he's 100% all in on it being a werewolf from second one.
That should be the one person you keep away from the X-Files.
Because it's just going to make him worse.
Yeah.
Do you have a theory?
I have plenty of theories. Maybe what you can explain to me is why it's bureau policy to label these cases as unexplained phenomena and ignore them. Do you believe in the existence of extraterrestrials?
Which says here, his belief in the paranormal springs from the claimed abduction of his sister Samantha Mulder by extraterrestrials when he was 12 years old. Her abduction drives Mulder throughout most of the series, and because of this, as well as more nebulous desires for vindication and the revelation of truths kept by hidden human authorities. Mulder struggles to maintain objectivity in his investigations and then some. Because like I said, he's just... They'll walk in and, like, first and foremost, they're there to solve a crime. Usually a murder or someone's disappearance. Like, and in that case, as like... You want to be as, like, gentle as you can be with, like, the victims or their families. And, like, you know, and Scully will walk in and she'll be very, like, very, very gentle. She's talking to him, like, you know, tell me about your husband. And Mulder walks in and goes, so, did you ever mention anything about being a werewolf? And it's like, shut up. But then again, it's so funny that he just goes in so hard immediately.
Yeah.
It's like, Joe, like playing LA Noire, but only picking the most aggressive option in every scenario.
Just doubt every time.
That's basically it. Like, why is there not, imagine a Telltale X-Files game?
That's the, like, the X-Files taking down the route of, like, an LA Noire sounds really fun.
But you have to, like, you can play, and in New Game Plus is you get to play as the other one. You pick who you play as, and then New Game Plus is play as the other one. Perfect. But
just you unlock the ability to play as Mulder after the first play.
And just like you can just every option is just at the bottom. It was aliens.
Doubt.
You fuck young boys, Valdez. Are you a madman?
Special Agent Scully is a foil for Mulder in this regard. As a medical doctor and natural skeptic, Scully approaches cases with complete detachment, even when Mulder, despite his considerable training, loses his objectivity. She is partnered with Mulder initially so that she can debunk Mulder's non-conforming theories, often supplying logical, scientific explanations for the case's apparently unexplainable phenomenon, which she always ignores, even when they're super fucking reasonable.
It just seems like such, like, and obviously they're there to balance one another out, but such a mismatch, and it's like, all it is just one person is like, no, it must be supernatural, and the other one's like, no, it mustn't be.
And what I said, it's fun to watch, but it's like even more fun to get annoyed by it. Like you watch it and it's like, again, you can either watch it from the perspective of like Scully like refuting it, even though she's witnessed like paranormal shit herself.
I wouldn't rule out ghosts.
Well, except for the fact that they don't exist.
Of course there are ghosts.
I mean, science has proven that the stimulation of the brain's left anterior insula is linked to the feeling of a sense present. And that repeated stimulation to an area of the left temporoparietal junction is what promotes the sense of a shadowy figure, collectively known as the Gestalt-Geschwind syndrome.
Dad? I thought you guys left.
Dana?
Mom? What's the matter?
We lost your dad. He had a massive coronary about an hour ago. He's gone.
Like hundreds of times by like the show's conclusion. it gets more and more frustrating that she keeps denying it. But conversely, it's also more and more frustrating that Mulder never takes a step back and thinks, well, maybe it's not vampires this time.
Maybe someone just got kidnapped. And it's like, no, it was definitely werewolves.
And there we have it. So, although she is frequently able to offer scientific alternatives to Mulder's deductions, she is rarely able to refute them completely. And that's where, like, him becoming a huge, like, penis comes in. Of, like, he'll say, well, how do you explain this one part of it? And he goes, okay, so, I don't know. Like, I can't think of an explanation that explains that. But just saying it was aliens... it conveniently doesn't need you don't actually need to do anything beyond say it was aliens,
because anything that is unexplainable,
you can just say it was an alien.
Well, we don't know because aliens do things that we can't explain.
And it's that thing as well of like, I get it if you're not, but you're an FBI agent, and first and foremost you're here to solve a crime, and there's a victim to that crime, and the victim and the victim's families are probably not going to be all too pleased when you're sat there going, it was an alien. Because, well, okay, so what are you going to do about it? We can't do it, it's an alien. It's like, keep that shit to yourself.
Imagine, like, just being the victim and just sitting there as, like, this FBI agent is like, I understand everything you've told us, but have you thought about it being aliens?
The thing is, that's what he does. Like, he'll just, like, wander around the house and he'll be like, so, has your husband ever expressed interest in becoming a warlock? And like, no, of course he hasn't. It's so good. That's what makes it so fun to watch, because I will flip between whether I'm watching it on Mulder or Scully's side. And a thing I recommend people do if they go watch the show is just at random choose who you want to support that week or for that episode.
Like each episode, just bounce back and forth. Like one episode you're on Mulder's side, the next Scully's.
And it's like, it's so fun. It's like, I think I've talked about before is rewatching shows and then just picking one character to fucking hate. And just like disagree with everything they say, and see if like that helps you like realize anything about the show you perhaps didn't notice before. And that's one of the things I've watched this show from like start to finish multiple times. And sometimes I'm on Scully's side. Sometimes you want to be in the mood to be like, no, fuck off. It wasn't aliens. But then other times like, well, what about if it was though? What about if it was an alien?
So that's the truth. We're not alone in the universe. But nobody likes us.
It's okay, Mulder. There'll always be more X-Files.
No. They give us all the answers to everything. Even Sasquatch. No! It's not true! It can't be! Ugh!
Well, here we go. So we have casting. So Duchovny had worked in Los Angeles for 3 years prior to the X-Files. And you mentioned Twin Peaks. He was on Twin Peaks. I believe he plays like a cross-dressing FBI agent on that show.
Mm-hmm.
One of his like early big roles, and he loved it apparently. So, prior to the X-Files, at first he wanted to focus on feature films, but in 1993 his manager gave him the script for the pilot episode of the X-Files. Duchovny and his manager were both convinced it was a good script, so he auditioned for the lead. Duchovny's audition was described as terrific, though he talked rather slowly, and that's like became like an iconic aspect of the character. Like he's very slow, methodical, just drawl as he talks through everything, which just makes it sound like you think you're talking about like the way I'm talking, all these fantastical elements. That's how you probably imagine it in your head, right? But like the fact that he just decided to approach it in this really methodical, like plodding way of just like his character, he's not excited or at all surprised by the existence of these supernatural phenomenon because he just knows. And I think that's a genius bit of like acting from Duchovny to decide of like, no, don't play him as if he's excited to talk about this stuff. He's bored of it because he knows he's right.
Something went terribly wrong, something unimaginable.
Okay.
Third aircraft, probably an F-15 Eagle, was given the coordinates for flight 549.
And yeah, I like the idea that just he's taking his time and thinking over things while he's, acting and stuff. And like, yeah, just the idea of an FBI agent having to think in their head while talking and therefore taking it a bit slower paced. It makes sense.
And it's one of those things as well, like it's just the same, just like complete, not objectivity, but you see like FBI, like they completely remove themselves from like the situation. Similar to what Scully does. Like one of my favourite things that Scully does in the show, because she's a medical doctor. Like she has to do a lot of autopsies, and that's something else you should look out for when you're watching the show, of just like how nonchalant she is about having like her guts in her hand. And like she'll have episodes where she's like pulling guts out of people's bodies and she's like, oh, I'm hungry. And then the next shot is her eating a pizza. Like it's the same approach from Duchovny of just like that complete and utter lack of any fucks being given, but towards these fantastical supernatural phenomenon.
Can you hold the ribs open while I grab that, please? Just now.
Right, yeah.
And I just love that idea. Anderson auditioned for the part of Scully in 1993, saying, I couldn't put the script down. For the role, the network wanted either a more established actress or one that was, in her own words, taller, leggier, blonder, and breastier than the 24-year-old Anderson.
Great.
Which I don't feel like, and I think one of the reasons like Scully ended up being a character that a lot of people resonated with is because she just looked very normal. Like they both look like, obviously, David Duchovny and Gillian Anderson, both phenomenally attractive people.
I don't know how you could think that what they say is even remotely plausible.
I think it's remotely plausible that someone might think you're hot.
But that they dress them down a lot for the show.
Mm-hmm.
Like Scully, like for example, like she's always like in her medical scrubs and stuff, and that's something Gillian Anderson insisted upon. Of like, well, if I'm a woman in medical scrubs, I'm not going to have my hair done. It should be done up properly.
Yeah.
We've talked before on the Fact Fiend channel about how a lot of like women and girls at home watched the show and really thought she was a great role model of just a woman in STEM. Of like a no-nonsense woman who knows exactly what she's talking about and is more often than not the most well-read, educated person in the room about the specific subject she's talking about. And she will frequently talk over and correct people who try and interrupt her when she's talking about the shit she knows, like medical stuff.
And then she also, doesn't believe in things that she sees.
Exactly, yeah. Well, it says here that the 24-year-old Anderson, a theatre veteran with minor film experience. After auditions, though, Chris Carter felt she was the only choice. Carter insisted that Anderson had the kind of no-nonsense integrity that the role required. And absolutely just nailed that one right away.
It's funny, because one of the only things that I really know about Gillian Anderson, like obviously, one of her biggest roles is like X-Files, something I haven't seen. But I'm aware of them, as a person. But it was just when they announced that like they're coming together to make more Community, and Joel McHale, I think it was, tagged all of the other people from Community. But instead of tagging Gillian Jacobs, the actress for Britta, he tagged Gillian Anderson and was like, "Oh, you're all ready to like get back together." Gillian Anderson just replied like, "Yeah, I can't wait." She's just like, if you want to bring me into Community, let's go. Sure.
Why not? That's the thing, I love it. So, the character of Walter Skinner was played by actor Mitch Pileggi, who had unsuccessfully auditioned for the role of 2 or 3 other characters on the show before getting the part. At first, the fact he was asked back to audition for a recurring role slightly puzzled him until he discovered the reason he had not been cast. So Carter had been unable to envision Pileggi as any of those characters because the actor had been shaving his head. However, when Pileggi auditioned for Walter Skinner, he'd been in a grumpy mood and had allowed a small amount of hair to grow back. And he has just like, the classic, just like horseshoe haircut. And he just looks like a no-nonsense motherfucker.
How did you get this?
Unofficial channels.
And that's the dream, isn't it, right? Of like becoming a recurring character on a show that's going to last like 10 fucking seasons.
Yeah, and we have more than 100 actors, on the other hand, audition for the role of Doggett, but only 10 people were seriously considered, including Lou Diamond, Hart Bochner, and Bruce Campbell among the 10. However, the producers chose Robert Patrick, as Carter believed that the series could continue for another 10 years with new leads, and the opening credits were accordingly redesigned in both seasons 8 and 9 to emphasise the new actors, along with Pileggi, who was finally listed as a main character. So it took him up to like season 8 to be a main character.
Is that Robert Patrick as in the T-1000?
T-1000, hell, goddamn yes.
Oh, yeah.
And then I think like the last thing we can cover is just the music, which, as a kid, terrified me. My first like experience with the X-Files is when I was a little kid, watching it, and like I had a black and white TV in my bedroom, because that's all we had, right? Just a spare TV from the night. And now imagine watching the X-Files on a black and white TV with that opening soundtrack coming over and like the blurry like U.F.O. And I imagine it was like fucking werewolves and shit.
Okay, yeah, I was just double checking. I was like, what's the music from the X-Files? And it is like the music that you think of when someone says like the words aliens.
Yeah, so the theme, The X-Files, used more instrumental sections than most dramas. The theme song's famous whistle effect was inspired by the track Soon, or How Soon Is Now from the US edition of the Smiths album Meat is Murder. After attempting to craft the theme with different sound effects, Snow used a Proteus 2 rack mount sound module with a preset called Whistling Joe. After hearing the sound, Chris Carter was, and I quote, taken aback and noted how this is going to be good. According to the Behind the Truth segment on the first season's DVD, Snow created the echo effect on the track by accident. He felt that after several revisions, something was still not right. Carter walked out of the room and Snow put his hand on the forearm. Carter walked out of the room and Snow put his hand and forearm on his keyboard in frustration. By doing so, he accidentally activated the echo effect setting. The resulting riff pleased Carter, and Snow said, "This sound was in the keyboard, and that was it."
Actually, my elbow, forearm on the keyboard, and there was this sound effect of this echo, delay echo effect on the piano sound, and it went da 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 ba 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 ba. And I said, "Oh, that's pretty good. No, I wonder if you do two notes, what's that sound like? Ba 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 ba. How about three? Ba ba da ba ba da ba. How about four? Ba ba da da ba da da ba da da ba." Oh, that's pretty cool.
There's not much you can say about the X-Files theme because
it's synonymous with the idea. Like whenever you have like it's aliens, like do do do, and like I said, as a kid, it terrified me. I was so scared, but I could not watch. Like, I wonder what we're going to fight this week. What monster's going to be in? Like, it legitimately terrified me for years. I was so scared of the X-Files theme.
But that has to be one of the most prolific themes of all time.
It might be one of the best opening themes to a television show ever.
Like,
legitimately one of the greatest like opening themes. Like, you hear the opening, like the dun-dun-dun-dun, that's it, you know the show instantly.
Yeah.
And you can see like the opening like credits as well, where you just see like. What always cracks me up is the fact they just have a plasma globe for no reason. They just zoom out of that, and it's like, I don't know why that represents sci-fi, but it's hard baked into those intro credits.
But yeah, I had to double check because it was like I was thinking of the theme, but I was like, but that must have been from something else because that must have been like, from way earlier. And it's like, no, it was from the 90s, from the X-Files, and it's just that good a theme that it became instantly synonymous with the idea of like sci-fi and aliens.
Yeah, and just like if anyone who wants to go watch that, I highly recommend it. It's fantastic. We've already covered like the show multiple times before on this channel and on Fact Fiend. We'll no doubt do again in the future. I love any excuse to talk about and put in clips of X-Files shows. But yeah, that's it. Have a happy Halloween, and as always, go out there and find the truth because it's out there. That was a terrible outro. We were running out of time, so I thought.
But you can just end it with the theme, it's fine.